Winter is coming, and I hate being cold in bed. I hate having to wrap up in layers and blankets. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to warm my bed for this winter season. So I wanted to do some research on what the best way to heat the bed was. Electric, I wanted to try to stay 12 volts, but I also thought about 115 volts through an inverter. So I looked through several ones and they seem to fall into a few categories. So I thought I'd review those for you, show you which one I picked, and then we're going to go ahead and install it and give it a try. So the first one I wanted to show you is this Maxo, which is typical of many of the lesser expensive warming blankets. And it is designed not to stay on all the time, and it doesn't have a thermostat. It's inexpensive. It has a button, and you can either have it for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. At the end of that time, it shuts off, and you have to turn it back on. The advantage there being you're not going to run down your battery. But the disadvantage is you're going to have to constantly turn it on, and when it's on, it runs all the time, so it's going to use some energy. Now, I couldn't find a listing for how much watts or amps that it draws. The next one I'm going to show you, this is TrekSafe, and this is similar to many others, and instead it has a high and low setting. And it says that the low setting is a low amp draw, but it doesn't tell the number of amps. I couldn't find that. And what it does is it stays all the time on all the time, but you can put it on low. When it came down to it, I wanted a thermostat. So I could go with an inexpensive 110, 115 volt thermostat, but I would have to run it through an inverter, but it could be a small inverter, maybe a 200 to 300 watt inverter. But I just kind of don't like the idea of losing that efficiency, converting it from 12 volts to 115 volts, but it would be very inexpensive and you'd have a lot of choices. So it's definitely an option, but I just like sticking with 12 volt. So what I decided on is I found this one, and it had very good reviews from truckers. Now, it is not a blanket. It is a warming pad, and it's from Electrowarmth, and there's the information on it. It says it's 95% efficient, dries out dampness, has a true thermostat. And this I thought would be the best option. It had a lot of good reviews from people who had bought it. There is some very, very specific warnings about how to install it and to be careful. And so we'll go through those. So this is the one I decided on. Now, it's not cheap. With shipping and tax, everything was $120. But like I've learned on coolers and refrigerators, you're going to end up buying something really good if it's something you're going to use a lot. And I'm planning on using this a lot. So let's start with the warnings here. The warnings are saying you have to unfold it completely, lay it across the mattress. If you fold it or it bunches up, you could get burnt. It could cause a fire. And they insist that you pin it to the mattress, and they give you these pins. So as much as I hate putting a pin through my vapor barrier, I'm going to go ahead and do it because I want to install it properly. Now, this mattress that I've made is an irregular shape, so I'm kind of having to move it around, but it's showing it being more towards the foot, which makes sense. You like your feet warmer than your head. Okay, so what I've done is I've gone all the way through the mattress cover down into the nylon cover of the mattress, and the way I did with that is I just poked it down in there all the way into the foam and then backed off till it let go of the foam, and I still had the nylon cover down there, and then went up through this again, back down through it again, and over. So there's quite a few of these, and I'm going to go all the way around and put them all in. So this is where the pillow is. It's not going to have heat anyway, going almost down to the foot. And it's, it doesn't sit perfectly, but it does go edge to edge. Now this is rated at 75 watts, and the car changing that 75 watts down to amps is roughly 6 amps. So I have the fitted sheet back on, and also I forgot to mention, keep in mind where your 12 volt socket is. Now if you're doing it in a standard Prius, there's going to be a socket up here in the center console you want to get to. But if you'll check out my electrical video, I built an electrical system right over here, and I've got plugs over here. So I'll be able to plug mine in down here. I have it plugged in now. I've made an extra plug back in here. This one goes off to the lights, and I put an extra one in, put a fuse on it. You can check my other video out. I'll post that below on the box here. Basically I have 6. I've used 3, so I made this one here, and I got this outlet from Walmart. Directions say turn it up to 7, and let it go for a half hour, and I can see why. I can feel, after about a minute, I can feel the heat over here to where the wire first goes in. I can definitely feel it heat here. But over here, a little bit over here, and then it's still cool to the touch up here. So I guess the heat starts down nearest the plug and works its way up. Now I do have the car completely off, and so the voltage is at 12.7, which is still a full battery. Now let's talk about power. I have two batteries. I have an extra house battery here and the Prius battery here. So that's 90 amp hours. So if we're at 6 amps and it ran nonstop for 8 hours, that should be 48 amps. So that would completely wipe out a standard battery, just the one battery. But with my two batteries, I could probably make it through, because it would just take each battery down by half. But you don't want to do that. So if you just have the standard Prius with just the one battery, my suggestion would be, option one would be to leave the car in the on position up front, and that will keep the batteries charged, and you'll always have 13 volts and you can go all night long. And the engine will only kick on when the big battery is exhausted and the 12 volt battery is exhausted. What it's going to do, when the voltage gets too low here, it's going to kick on the engine. It's going to recharge the 200 volt battery, and then it's going to kick off, and then the 200 volt battery is going to charge the 12 volt battery. So as the 12 volt battery runs down, eventually the 200 volt battery will run down, and the car will kick on and recharge it. So that way you're not going to run your batteries down. You're not going to be able to have a problem starting your car. You'll have plenty of power. Now, the next step, option two, if it's really cold, what you can do, since it's a Prius, is you can leave the car on, turn the climate control on to something pretty cold, let's say 55 or 60 or something like that, to where that's your backup heat. And then set your electric blanket. So when it gets super, super cold, the engine will kick on, heat the coolant, circulate the coolant, and make heat through the climate control. And then you'll always have this heat cycling on and off, on and off. Now, when I was talking about the full amount you might need if you had the car off. Now, the reason I did the thermostat is not going to run all the time, because once you get it up to heat, and then you're going to back it down to what you want. And from the instructions I had, it said 1 was actually pretty comfortable. I'm going to keep it up here right now to heat it up. So let's say, though, that it's going to run 50% of the time. So if we have the 6 amps and we're going to go for 8 hours, that'd be 48, but we're only doing a 50% duty cycle. So that would be 24 amp hours. So if it did run that way on and off, one single 12 volt battery could probably handle it through the night with the car being completely off, but I wouldn't chance it. But for the first round, I'm gonna leave the car in the on position with the climate control off, and it's gonna get down into the 30s tonight, so I think that will be a good test. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes, and I checked it, and I went ahead and put a blanket over it, and I felt it, and it is warm from top to bottom, but not hot. So it's warm. I backed it now. It was on 7. I backed it off at 6, and it has fluctuated from 12.5 to 12.7, so I'm guessing that's when it's cutting on and off. It doesn't make a tick sound when it clicks on and off, so you don't really know. So now I'm going to show you what happens with the voltage when I turn the car on. So there we're in the on position. And usually the car kicks on at this point. Let's check the voltage before then. So yeah, our voltage, even though the car's not running, the voltage has jumped right up to 14.1. Now the engine just kicked on. It's going to charge up the 200 volt battery. And also, the green light means my Dometic fridge is also running at the same time. So it'll come up, it'll charge up the big battery, and then it will stay at 14 volts from here on, even with the engine off and the climate control off. So this would be my recommendation on how to run it. That way you'll never worry about depleting your batteries. Well, it's time for dinner, and it's actually fairly warm in here without the blanket. Electric mat running. Between the body heat and the refrigerator, it's staying pretty warm. Oh, it's morning and it's cold outside. It's got down to, I think, about 42 degrees last night, but I stayed warm and toasty inside. When I first got in, the temperature inside here was 74, so it was too warm to run any heat. And as it cooled down in here when I went to bed and it got down to below 70, I went ahead and turned it on setting number 1. And actually that turned out to be too warm, so I backed it down to a half, and it still worked down at a half, and it was nice. And as the temperature dropped during the night, and it dropped down inside the cabin down to 58, and as it dropped down I would just bump it up a half notch each time. And so by morning I only had it set on 2.5, so it works well. I think it's extremely efficient. It's a little different way. I've usually had just a standard electric blanket where the heat's kind of on top of you and heat's all around you. This heat's from underneath you, so it's basically where there's pressure on it is where you're going to feel the heat. So if you just slide your hand across the mattress, you really don't feel any heat. It's where there's pressure. So it's kind of different when you lay on your back and on your side. One nice thing about laying on your back, it's kind of like having a back heater. So if you have lower back pain and you like back heat, I think you'll enjoy it. So the settings were I left the car on, so I didn't have to worry about voltage. So the voltage stayed at 14 volts all night. I left the climate control off because I just wanted to see how that would work out, and it worked fine. I had to tuck the curtains in real tight on the edge because I was getting a little bit of draft from the front compartment because I had the curtain closed, which makes the area smaller and warmer. And I was noticing a draft on my face, and I finally discovered in the middle of the night it was because I didn't tuck the edge of the curtain into the rubber piece on the side, and when I did that, then I didn't have the draft across my face. So it was a good night's sleep. I'm pleased with it. I'm going to keep it. And also today I'm going to start on the pressurized water system. I got my parts. I probably might need a little more, but I'm going to start working on it. So that's an exciting project that I'm going to work on today. So thanks for your comments, any questions. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.